Hello again, and welcome again to the Delphi Economic Forum. We will now move to discuss questions of EU enlargement in the Western Balkans, and we have two distinguished speakers with us today. Mr. Nikola Dimitrov, Deputy Prime Minister for European Affairs, Republic of North Macedonia, and with us from Brussels, Mr. Olivér Várhelyi, the European Commissioner for Neighbourhood and Enlargement. He's connected with us via link from Brussels. Welcome to both. I hope you're ready for some tough questions today. And let me start with Commissioner. Commissioner Várhelyi, okay, so Mr. Várhelyi cannot, there is a technical problem. So we will start with Mr. Dimitrov. Deputy Prime Minister Dimitrov, always a pleasure to see you in Athens, to have you in Athens. Let me start with this sticky, hot question of the recent, of these days, which is, of course, the so-called decoupling. Whether, just to explain what is decoupling, whether the two countries that are effectively ready to start accession negotiations, North Macedonia and Albania, will start accession negotiations with the EU together, or they will be separated, at least for now. And let me ask you, 2 years ago, it was North Macedonia that was rumored to be favored by these ideas about decoupling. And back then, it was seen by many in Skopje that your country, North Macedonia, was ready to start, and it was held back by kind of slower preparation on the part of Albania. But today the tables have turned, as we all know. What is the view from Skopje when it comes to the so-called decoupling? And what does the government of North Macedonia is doing to actually work against ideas of decoupling, or to ensure that both countries will start accession negotiations together this year?
It's great to be here on a topic that is obviously the most pressing issue for North Macedonia these days, for my country, but also I think for the region and for the EU in terms of its credibility and leverage in a region that is geographically surrounded by the EU, by member states. The issue of coupling or decoupling is to some extent misleading. Our friend, the leader of Albania, Edi Rama, tweeted the other day that these discussions about Albania and North Macedonia in the last couple of years reminds him of the masterpiece Waiting for Godot. And the two characters, Estragon and Vladimir, who talk, etc., and Godot never arrives. I think that the overwhelming majority of the member states are in favor of two intergovernmental conferences, both with us and with our friends and neighbors in Tirana. This is our common goal. This is what we work towards. Both countries have fulfilled everything that was required. The accession process should be a merit-driven process, performance-based process. And I think we have finally reached a time where the long-overdue accession should start. We are a country that has waited the longest. We signed the association agreement after Slovenia, before Croatia. Both countries are member states for a while now. We've been a candidate country for 16 years. Albania also for 6 years. And we've had many negative precedents in our European saga. When we became a candidate country, until then, this meant start of accession talks. Not in our case. When the Commission recommended that we are ready to start the journey, for the first time in 2009, 12 years ago, usually before us, the Council followed, not in our case. We have a political decision of all member states from March last year, without additional preconditions attached, that we should start accession talks. Still, this is not translated into reality. So our case essentially is a test for the European Union whether we in the region, in the Western Balkans, can trust the European Union, and whether the European perspective, the promise of Thessaloniki 2003, reiterated in Sofia in May 2018, still stands.
Thank you, Mr. Dimitrov. I will now move to Commissioner Várhelyi, if he's with us. Commissioner, hello. Good morning from Athens.
Good morning.
Well, because of the technical problem, we started with Mr. Dimitrov, and he had us a smooth transition into this hot potato question of decoupling. So we already mentioned for our audience what is decoupling. And let me, well, ask the difficult question also to you, Commissioner. I will quote from a statement of yours, recent statement of yours, quote, "If we run into difficulties again with North Macedonia, then the question will emerge whether we can move forward with Albania only. Decoupling might be an option," yes. Now, after this statement, the prospect of possible decoupling has been swiftly rejected by Germany, and more recently by several other countries, including, as I understand, Greece also. The question is, however, and this is a bit confusion in my mind, and I believe to many others, whether there is two opinions in the European Commission. What is specifically the opinion of the DG NEAR, the Directorate General for European Neighbourhood Policy and Accession Negotiations, on this issue? Are you of the opinion that if both Albania and North Macedonia cannot start accession negotiations, it's better that at least Tirana start, so to say, one better than none? Or you have a different opinion? And is there a unity of opinion in Brussels, in the Commission, on this issue?
I'm very happy to hear these statements. That confirms that then the member states are ready to actually have the first intergovernmental conference or the actual first negotiations on the accession of both countries. This is very good news. I'm very happy to hear that. So far, this has not been so clear. So for me, this is a positive development on the basis of which we are ready to work. We still have a number of weeks ahead of us. I do hope that in June, we should be able to have agreement on both countries. But you need to know that we will need all member states to agree. This is how the process is. And this is what we are working on, to obtain the support of all the member states on both countries. Now, referring back to my statement, is just stating the obvious. If we cannot manage to get agreement on both countries, this question will inevitably come to the fore. And we will have to have an answer on that at that time. But for the time being, we're working for both of these countries.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think I will turn now back to Mr. Dimitrov. The Commissioner has highlighted that we need all member states to agree, as we all know, of course. And I think this will inevitably bring us to the question of Bulgaria, of course. Now, I would call it maybe a string of bad luck that North Macedonia has had. It's again at the receiving end of some sort of problems or political questions. And this time is the electoral governmental uncertainty in Bulgaria. So North Macedonia is still in the waiting room, as we all know, for starting accession negotiations, while the current main blocker, which is Bulgaria, is not expected to have a government, functioning government, before midsummer at best. So is this deadlock really impossible to overcome in the coming months? What have you done as a government of North Macedonia so far, and what are you willing to do more in order to improve the chances of getting to an agreement with Sofia? And for that matter, is the key only in Sofia, or you think there are other places where we should look for solutions?
Yes, this is the key question at the moment. I think the stakes are really high this time. And it's becoming impossible for us to sustain and to continue to talk about the European perspective to the citizens of North Macedonia. I think this reflects to some extent also among other countries. I had an echo, so I'm going to take this out in the region. There is a big stake for the European Union because promises were made, and if promises are not kept, this sends a very negative message. There is a big stake. The biggest stake, of course, is with us. We are the ones that would like to start this journey. I think there is also a big stake for Bulgaria and the friendship between the two peoples and the two nations, the two countries. It will be quite natural for our neighbors, who are also member states of the European Union, to have the biggest interest of a European North Macedonia, of a successful story in their neighborhood. And I think from this perspective, we should approach and revitalize the engagement with Sofia. It is true there is a caretaker, an expert government, new elections, 11th of July, but there are also presidential elections in the fall. And if we wait until the end of the year, then there are other important elections in various member states. So I think after all this time, we don't have the luxury to simply say, let's wait. I think we have to try to seize the moment, to find a way to overcome the obstacle. And I see this as a win-win-win or a lose-lose-lose scenario. We don't have a scenario where Bulgaria wins and North Macedonia loses. We are both losers or both winners. And the European Union is in the same basket as well. We've tried. There were efforts by Commissioner Várhelyi, by the German presidency in the past. We have the Portuguese presidency now, that a country that is an honest broker. They're far from us. And I think we have an opportunity to return the momentum of the European idea in the Balkans, because we are very close to losing that momentum because of this failure and because of different layers of disappointments on other issues. So this is not really a blame game. I think we have to see this as an opportunity. We really did a lot. We had a democratic U-turn in the last years. The Commission itself repeatedly issued recommendations that we are ready. We solved an issue that was a problem for 25 years. We received international and European praise. We have a friendship agreement with Bulgaria, and we are committed to implement that friendship agreement. But it's really high time to start this journey. So I cannot underscore more how big the stakes are. For me, as a person who is a member of the cabinet in Skopje, responsible for European integration, I will really find it increasingly difficult to talk about the European perspective if the EU doesn't deliver, because then we cannot deliver to the people.
Thank you. A question for the Commissioner now. Mr. Várhelyi, the Council of the European Union has finally agreed to extend the revised enlargement methodology, the new methodology for enlargement, also to the only two countries that are currently in accession negotiations, that is Montenegro and Serbia. Can you tell us what does the DG NEAR expect from the revised methodology and its application in all candidate states? But also, how would you allay the fears of peoples and political elites in the Western Balkans worrying that the new methodology, the revised methodology, is nothing else than an attempt to further delay the enlargement process, further extend it in time? And of course, the enlargement process has already suffered a lot from both politicization and delays.
Well, first of all, the latest decision of the Council to extend the application of the new methodology negotiations with Serbia shows clearly the success of the new methodology. The new methodology was there, put there by this Commission to bring back life into the enlargement process. As you may remember, back in the days when we took over, 1st of December 2019, the whole enlargement process was completely stuck for at least 2 years. And we had a not very easy political situation to bring it back to life. And first we came up with the new methodology, which was meant to raise the credibility of the process, the predictability of the process, the political driven nature of the process, meaning that our member states would have to invest politically also and commit themselves politically. And it was through that we have been able to agree to start the accession negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia, both. Something that the Council has been failing to agree on for over 2 years, including the European Council. For me, that was already a success. Now, what this opting into the new methodology shows that also those candidate countries who are already negotiating see a major opportunity in the new methodology to speed up their enlargement process. If you take only the technical part, which means that you can open accession negotiation chapters much easier as they are grouped to be into clusters of issues, meaning all political issues that belong together, that already gives a very high incentive for them to opt in. But not only that, given the increased credibility of the whole process, it gives them a much better opportunity to move ahead with the substantial reforms back in their country. Now, this Commission has also put on the table a very substantive economic and investment plan, which will contribute largely to the economic recovery after the COVID crisis. This Commission also has put a very meaningful COVID crisis management support for the Western Balkans. Only in the economic and investment plan, we put on the table almost 30 billion euros of investments to the countries, investments that will boost their economies and investments that will change the ground within 4 to 5 years in the Western Balkans. In the COVID crisis, we have mobilized over 3.3 billion euros of support, and only lately we have been also delivering vaccines to the region. So our commitment is very clear. We have this decision still ahead of us to be made, but I'm confident that Europe and its member states will back up all the promises we have been making. And I'm also confident that our Western Balkan partners understand all the layers of our relations and all the strength of our political, economic, and social commitment we are making, maybe not in the headlines, but on an everyday and consistent basis.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we have time for only one final question for the next 3 minutes. Deputy Prime Minister Dimitrov, I think it's clear to everybody that North Macedonia has many friends in the EU, in governments, member states, and you and Prime Minister Zaev are always abroad promoting the cause of the country, and I think this has been done successfully, very successfully. But I would like to turn our attention to ordinary citizens in EU member states, not the prime ministers, not the ministers of foreign affairs, who are your friends and know very well the situation. The ordinary citizen in Greece, in Germany, in France, in Netherlands, who do not follow and no need to follow, they don't need to follow the developments in the Western Balkans. Can you give us positive arguments why an ordinary German Frenchman, Spaniard, should support North Macedonia and Western Balkan in general in their efforts to join the European Union? Positive arguments from the region.
Yes. We are, first of all, the geographic argument. When people of Germany or France or the Netherlands and Sweden think of the Balkans, usually they think this is a region somewhere in the southeast that borders us. But we are actually within the European Union geographically. This is a region that also has an economic potential, not fully used. 3/4 of the trade of the Balkans is with the common market. 3/4 of the FDI coming to the region are from companies from member states of the European Union. This is a region that is increasingly aligned with European policies, not only on security and foreign issues, but also in many other areas. This is a region that has common security interests with Europe. And the migration crisis through this so-called Balkan route back in 2015 and 16 showed how integral the Western Balkans is with the rest of Europe. And it's not only stability in terms of whether the region is stable, but there is a need for the region and the rest of Europe to face common security challenges together. We are all better off, the member states, the people of Europe and the people of the region, who are also people of Europe in many ways, if this region is fully aligned, fully integrated, and we invest so that there is economic convergence, and that these are great European democracies with economic prosperity. The other option is to ignore the region. I think this is much more costly. And instead of the region becoming European, families of the Balkans will go and have a European way of life in the member state one by one, individually. So in a way, we are in a race against time to make it happen. And if Europe cannot make a difference for the better in this region, when there is a promise, when there are tools, when there are IPA mechanisms, funds, etc., then the ambition of Europe to be a geopolitical player globally, beyond its borders, will be very difficult to fulfill.
Deputy Prime Minister Dimitrov, thank you very much. Commissioner Várhelyi, thank you very much. We hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.